hockey fans. T-Boz is 13-3 here with another top shelf guest. Former Detroit Red Wing, Minnesota NorthStar, Minnesota Fighting Saint, and current host at the XL Energy Center's NHL Alumni Lounge, Carl Wetzel. This episode is sponsored by the Chippewa Steel, Riverside Bike and Skate, Raleigh's Coach Club, Market and Johnson, Williams Diamond Center, and Kelly Heating and Electric. Mogi.
Oh, Carl, we're so excited to have you. We've obviously seen you a couple times at the Alumni Lounge over at the XL Energy Center. We met you at an earlier gathering of the Minnesota senior hockey players, and we're here at Tom Reed's Hockey City Pub, really our home away from home, and we understand that you've got quite a background. We're looking so forward to hearing all about it.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Well, we appreciate it. Tell us about growing up and taking up hockey in Detroit, Michigan, of all places. That's awesome.
Well, back when I was taking up hockey, I'm 86 now, so when I was in, say, elementary school through high school, there were no indoor rinks in Detroit except for the Detroit Olympia where the Red Wings played. So all my hockey was street hockey, alley hockey, pond hockey, training. I played a lot of handball, tennis for hand-eye coordination. And if I didn't have anybody to play with, I just went up against a blank wall for hours, so not only did it teach me hand-eye coordination, but just I did things that now I realize is what they're teaching. I visualize as I'd be I'd be visualizing making that stop against, JC or somebody. But so it was unique in that way. And I never had to put pair of goalie pads on until I was in 10th grade in high school.
Really?
We played all these places, but it was always pickup games, and with a tennis ball, with a puck. And then only protection, I had some shin pads, no nut cup. Oh. And then my second base glove was my catching glove.
You lived on the edge.
So were you a goalie right off the bat, Carl?
Yeah, I always ended up, when we'd play pickup games and stuff like that, and that's where I wanted to be.
Okay, I was going to ask you if it was your choice or they just threw you in there.
No.
Okay, it's your choice.
They said, you're the best, Carl, the best athlete.
Oh, yeah?
There's three things and I didn't learn until I was in Montreal, in Toe Blake. I talked with him after a practice, and I said, Coach, 18 Stanley Cups. How, one guy, how do you do that? He says, well, first of all, you got to have a great coach. And he's not patting him, you come up through the ranks and of course, a great organization.
Sure.
And he said, and you got to have a great goaltender. I said, well, I understand the coach part, but how do you know somebody's going to be a great goaltender or ready for the Montreal Canadiens? He said, we have three criteria. Number one, he has to be the best athlete.
Oh.
Number two, he has to be the best skater. And number three, he's got to have the highest IQ. So I rest my case before you tell any goaltender jokes today.
Okay. Well, you know that I'm going to anyway.
Yeah, I got you covered.
Thank you for that. Okay, you started playing as a youth, obviously. Did you have a favorite NHL team growing up?
Well, of course, Detroit.
Absolutely.
I lived in the area where the Red Wings played. I used to follow the single guys that lived around the Olympia. I used to follow them home from church, and they're my idols,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
So anybody in particular, any goalies that spurred you on or you tried to pattern your game after?
Yeah, the Detroit goalies back then, the first one I remember was Harry Lumley, And he was regular in Detroit for 6 or 7 years. And then he got injured, and Terry Sawchuk came in. And then he got injured, and Glenn Hall came in. And that's how the torch was passed. If somebody couldn't finish a game or couldn't, continue, somebody stepped in. They might place it somewhere else after that. But
Did you get to many Red Wing games as a kid?
like I said, a lot of the time I lived very close to the Olympia. And I can't remember what grade I was in, maybe 6th or 7th. And I realized if you stood out in front of the Olympia as a youngster, you'd always get a free ticket.
Oh.
People would come by and get a ticket or two, because back then they didn't have full arenas. They had good crowds. But only one time in all, I don't know how many hundreds of games I went to, that I must have been a playoff game where I didn't get a ticket. So,
Just for free, just standing out there.
Yeah, they'd just go by and say. And then after, I don't know when I figured it out, but I would, get a ticket. And, wow, here I go. And then somewhere I realized, why don't they wait around here? Maybe I'll get, because, getting a balcony ticket. So I waited around and got something better. Then sold the balcony seats. So it was, it's
Yeah, some popcorn money.
So, but, I didn't realize you're supposed to look dejected. I probably would have done that. I would have got more.
So you were a smart kid.
Well, in some ways, yeah.
Said highest IQ. There you go, right there.
Go, wow. Oh, man.
So, Carl, you played your junior hockey in the OHA with the Hamilton Tiger Cubs. So tell us about that experience. You moved up to Canada to play.
Okay, so then we got to back up a little bit. First time I put goalie pads on was in 10th grade. At that point, I had pads. I was on the move. So I played, because I had a lot of very talented, and there wasn't a lot of ice in Detroit. They had some outdoor rinks that were refrigerated. So I got into groups that were junior and senior players, and everybody wanted a goalie. So somebody would always pick me up, and I would go. On weekends, I'd be maybe at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd be over on the east side. Somebody would have to pick me up at my house. And then somebody would call and say, what are you doing at noon? I say, well, I'm going to be over here. I'll be finishing around 11:30. You want to pick me up? And then so I just went wherever they were going, and I skated all day, Saturday and Sunday. And then to get indoor ice, there was a group of us. We used to go to Windsor, Ontario was across the river, but Chatham, Ontario, and another town, Blenheim, they had ice all night. So Friday and Saturday nights, we'd get a group of guys, and we'd skate from midnight until 2, or 2 until 4 in the morning, 4 till 6, whatever. Great ice times, they were available, and it was cheap.
Rink rats.
Holy buckets.
Holy cow.
So when you like you said, in 10th grade was the first time you actually strapped on the pads, and you're playing with all these groups of people. Did you have any high school organized hockey at that time?
No. The only organized hockey they had was this recreation league from the city, and they got one game a week. It was at the Olympia, where the Red Wings played, and you got 3 10-minute periods of running time.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, they had so many teams,
Oh, sure.
So that's why I was going wherever I could find hockey.
So go ahead, Mo.
So you played 8 o'clock with one team. You played at noon with another team.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most games you ever played in one day?
I have
one
no.
stretch?
It wasn't. They're mostly guys that got together and rented ice. When they needed somebody for a practice goalie.
Oh, okay.
So I was all in.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
And what was the age of these people? Were they your age to whatever?
No, I was probably 14, and most of them were 18 to 30, 35, whatever. They were just a mix, because it just wasn't a lot of organized. There were a lot of guys that wanted to play, but so they had to make their own rules, their own time.
So you're playing with grown men?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So in order then, when you ended up playing in the OHA, was somebody randomly scouting and found you and said, holy crap, this kid can play?
No.
How did you end up in the OHA?
Well, I was, as a senior in high school, I used to commute to London, Ontario, which is 120 miles away. And I used to play their weekend games, Friday, Saturdays, or Sundays. And I was still in, like I said, I was still in high school. So I either, if it was a Saturday game, I could probably take the Greyhound bus, or otherwise I'd get somebody to give me a ride. So I played, closest game was 60 miles away, was Sarnia, Ontario, up to 225 miles was Hamilton. So sometimes I'd get on that Greyhound, take my equipment to school, get on that Greyhound on Friday after school, get down to London for the Saturday game. Then after the Sunday game, I'd jump on the Greyhound. I remember I used to get back into Detroit at 7 in the morning downtown, jump on the city bus and be at school by 8.
Oh my God, that is dedication.
I loved it. I loved the game.
How about your parents? They were obviously very supportive of this.
Oh yeah, they knew that I was in, I'd say, in good hands. They knew I was not out running around and never. So, I think my mom comes from a hockey family. She grew up in Kitchener, Ontario.
Okay. Yep.
So she got it. I don't think my dad. He was from Indiana. He didn't quite get it.
More basketball down there.
Wow. So you ended up. Did you originally end up with the Hamilton Tiger Cubs? Then was that your first stop?
No. See, when it was in London, and a Chicago scout stopped me after a game and some information from me. And about 2 days later, the general manager from the Red Wings called me up. And he says, Carl, I would like you to come down and practice with us, the Red Wings. I said, okay, who is this? Jim? Bobby? Who is it?
One of your buddies screwing with you.
So no, it's Mr. Adams. So I went and practiced with the Red Wings whenever I could the rest of my senior year. And then I played 4 exhibition games with them. We played University of Michigan, Michigan State, and 2 senior teams from Ontario.
As a senior in high school?
Senior.
Holy cow.
I used to, and when they'd have a game, I'd get my equipment, get on the city bus, and head down to the Olympia, and take their, they'd have a bus, and we'd go up to, say, Michigan State, and then get back to Detroit, I don't know, probably 2 in the morning, and there was a bus stop just across the street, and some guys said, well, Carl, do you need a ride? Oh, no, I got a ride. I didn't want, I didn't live in the greatest part of town, and I was kind of, I don't want these guys to know where I'm living, It wasn't that bad, but I mean, as a kid, you don't know. So I'd take the city bus. I did that like 4 times for throughout the year. And then Dick Heidliger, the coach of Michigan, called me. He says, Carl, why don't you come up and try out with us, which they could do back then. Okay. So I went out and skated with them, and he invited me up again. He said, well, we're going to offer you a scholarship, everything. School, books, room, tuition, a job, wink, wink, because so I said, well, I'd really like to go to training camp with Detroit. Their training camp is 2 weeks before your school starts. And he said, well, Carl, probably, yeah, you go, but you can take the room, but don't take the meal money. Otherwise, you'll be a pro.
Oh.
So I got in line. The first day I went to practice and came out, no problem. The next day I show up for practice, and they had a table out in front of the arena for some guys that hadn't signed up the first day. And I hear this booming voice, Wetzel, get over here. This is Jack Adams.
Holy crap.
So now I'm 6'2" at that time, and probably 150 150, I don't know, maybe 660 pounds. And he was a big, robust man. He says, they tell me you didn't take your meal money yesterday. I said, no, Mr. Adams, I'm going to go to the University of Michigan. Get over there and get your money. I said, no, I'm going to go to the university. Get over there and get your money. But get over there. Okay. So I got over there. But I didn't take the money. I don't know if I pretended I did or whatever. I walked in without taking the money again. So then I got a call from Vic Heidliger that night. He says, Carl, we're not going to be able to keep that scholarship offer that we made to you. It was all verbal, you know.
Oh.
No. So here I am up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, 17 years old. Nobody from Detroit had ever played hockey. And it's not like I could go back and say, okay, here's what it is. I didn't realize that I could have played at any school in the United States. You know?
Right.
But anyway, so I went back and took the $35 meal money, and I was then a professional.
17 years old.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Did they ever give you a reason why?
10 years later, I got reinstated as an amateur to play with the U.S. team. And we're playing up at the Broadmoor in Colorado. And after we're playing a tournament, I think, with Czechs and Russians and Canadians at Christmas time. I'm walking into a restaurant after the game, and I hear, Carl, come on over here. It's John Mariucci, he's coaching us. He says, I want you to meet somebody. This is Vic Heidliger. Now, Vic had started the program at the Air Force Academy. He started that program. He says, Carl, I always wanted to tell you, Jack Adams called me, told me if I kept that offer open to you, they would not send me any more players. See, at that time, you had the head coach. He didn't have an assistant or a recruiter or anything. So in this, I'm sure all the coaches in the U.S., they relied on information from different, you know, the scouts that like the Red Wings, they call them bird dogs. They'd be all over and they like the players. They didn't get paid much, but they'd find somebody in Flin Flon or Moose Jaw, and they think it would fit the program, and so they would send them down. So that was that. I told you it was going to take a while to get through it.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Wow.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
So you're a pro because you took
35
money.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? Wow. Well, you had a special moment as an 18-year-old playing for the Whitby Dunlops against the Soviet national team, the very first time the Soviets played in Canada.
In North America.
In North America.
Yeah.
North America. And you got to tell us about that experience.
When I say that, they may have, I'm not sure if they were down in the U.S. first, but the first time that they played in Canada. So that was a big deal. And
heck yeah.
so I had, with the Hamilton team, we had played Whitby, an exhibition game a couple of weeks before. And their goaltender, Jim Henry, who eventually played, either before that he was with the Bruins or after. But anyway, he told Ren Blair, their coach, he said, well, that Wetzel kid really played well. Why don't... Now, when they came and asked me to play, I didn't even think about here we are in Canada, first time that the Russians are there, and they're asking an American kid to play.
That was one of our questions.
Well,
how did that happen?
Well,
that's great.
And then it just never, I just wanted to play hockey, But I think there's a lot of Canadian kids that saw that wanted to play hockey too. I probably wasn't very, very popular with them, I mean, that was I don't know if that would have been the first televised game across Canada. But back then they used to televise just the last period and a half. I don't know what the deal was on that, but then they televised it across Canada.
Okay.
So that was exciting to say the least.
And you won the game.
Yes.
7-2, I believe it was.
Were you there?
I vivid memories of that game. How about you, JC?
Oh my gosh! I mean, what? Yeah, you're an American kid in Canada playing
18
against the
years old.
Soviets. 18 years old.
And these guys had just won the previous Olympic gold medal for
Right.
crying out loud.
So, okay, tell us about your teammates. I mean, were they phenomenal that they didn't let the puck get to you, or what happened?
Oh, yeah. Well, they did a couple of times. But no, we had a great team. We had Charlie Burns that eventually played with the North Stars.
Yeah.
Harry Sinden, Bruins,
Spain,
and then
yeah.
general manager, fellow that played for the Toronto the year before, Sid Smith. They had some good players. Obviously, they won the Olympics.
Wow. I got to hand it to you. That's. Do you have the jersey or anything from that competition?
No. The only jersey that I ever got to take home after, back then, the NHL, nobody, well, maybe Gordie Howe did. Nobody, they didn't give you anything. The only jersey I ever got is the one that's hanging up in the other room here from the Fighting Saints.
Tom Reed's got it hanging up here in his
That's
place.
the only jersey. Oh, I'm sorry. And then from the U.S. team, I did. We got and those were jerseys were ready. I think they were probably there from the '60 Olympics. But anyway,
their purpose.
But anyway, it was that. Of course, I'm glad to have, and that was the first year I played with them, and ended up I pat myself in the back. I won I was the All-Star goaltender in that tournament.
Yes.
So,
that was going to be one of our questions.
Oh,
Go ahead. Keep going.
No, so that was another one of your questions. You say what did I enjoy the most from my years? And that year, 66, 67 with the U.S. team we had a great bunch of guys, and we didn't. I think we came in fourth, but we had a good. As a matter of fact, it was fifth, and
Yeah.
I still ended up getting the All-Star goaltender. But
He must have played phenomenally well.
They didn't give awards to the North Americans. I was the first goalie to get that All-Star, first American at any position, and then so they just the Russians were so good too. They would always get. They were very disappointed if they only got five on the All-Star team. They wanted all six.
That's oh man, it's speechless is what it is. Wow. I was up in the alumni room with you this past Friday, and I got the opportunity to meet your granddaughter. And she shared with me that you're quite the storyteller, and that you led your grandchildren to believe that you were an all-star in just about everything you did. You care to share with our listeners some of the tall tales that you told?
Well, granddaughters, they love their granddad.
He can do no wrong.
That's right.
So it wasn't a big thing, but ever they'd talk about, we'd be watching TV and it would be somebody, they're playing football or basketball or whatever. I said, I was all state in Michigan in basketball. Oh, you were, Grandpa? Oh, yeah. So no matter what sport, their eyes would twinkle and he is so great. And they finally wised up.
They figured it out finally.
Then the internet came to be.
Okay. Oh. Following your junior career, you entered into the professional ranks playing for 16 different clubs in 14 U.S. cities. Obviously, you've already told us there was no real draft back then. You were just all of a sudden Detroit Red Wings held your rights.
Well, because I was from the city of Detroit, they held my rights. And if I understand right, I guess I never did look it up, but my understanding is they told me, this scout from Chicago that was looking at me when I was in London, he said that the 50-mile radius of an NHL city, anybody in that city belonged to that. If you're in the city, you belong to Detroit. If you're in Toronto, you belong to Toronto. And I got to really research that, because that how did Montreal and Toronto ever get that put in? Because Detroit, Boston, New York, and Chicago, we didn't have anybody playing any pro hockey at that time, So they got everybody that was in Toronto and Montreal. They had a leg up on us.
Oh boy, did they ever!
Holy crap!
So what about the guys, Carl, from the outskirts? Let's say, from Western Canada, where there weren't any professional teams.
Then they would be out there looking at them. Well, then they used to be able to go, and if they'd see that Mogi out there is 14 years old, and they would send a telegram. I think it was to Montreal, to the league headquarters, and put, say, the Detroit Scout, put Mogi on our list.
Okay.
And you were on their list forever.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't have any choice.
Wow.
We're going to give a quick shout out to some of our sponsors. Markin & Johnson. Thanks to our friends at Markin & Johnson, longtime supporters of the great game of hockey and our youth throughout the Chippewa Valley region. Kelly Heating and Electric, dedicated to serving their customers' heating and electrical needs efficiently. They have been named one of Bryant's Medal of Excellence winners. They provide expert advice from friendly staff that can provide you with knowledge you need to make the best decisions on your next electrical, heating, or air conditioning project. And Williams Diamond Center is a fun and friendly place to find your next sparkling signature piece. Whether you're looking for a custom-designed engagement ring, an anniversary gift, or a self-purchase to celebrate yourself, Williams has the price points for every story and every budget. Buyers and sellers of estate jewelry, coins, and more. Mogi.
So, Carl, JC started that question about you played with 16 different clubs. So I've got the list here, and yeah, it's 16 different clubs. You played in Omaha, Edmonton, Spokane, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, Sudbury, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Quebec. I mean, what was your favorite stop? And
well, first of all, back then, there's only one goalie on a team. So a lot of those stops where a goaltender would get hurt, and Carl would get shipped off from Sudbury down to Omaha. So the goaltenders were moved around quite a bit.
Oh my gosh!
But there were some of those were for extended through the year. So I think, did you ask what was my favorite?
What was your favorite stop? Yeah,
favorite stop. I think in the NHL, although I didn't. Well, I was in Montreal. I was with Montreal for about 6 weeks in the 65-66 season when Gumborsley was out. So I like Montreal is a great city.
Okay.
And then the internationally, I played tournaments in Vienna, Geneva, and Bern, Switzerland. I love those cities. They're great. Yeah.
You played in the era of the original six. Not many people are left to be able to say that, okay? Which is good. That means you've lived a long, great life. How do the barns back then compare to what you're seeing like in the XL Energy Center today?
Well, there's none of the amenities, of course, but there's still great memories of those. When you say barns, those buildings. I mean, they're just great buildings. The old Madison Square Garden or the Boston Garden, the Forum. I mean, they're just Detroit Olympia. Just get goosebumps thinking about those places. They were wonderful places.
Which one did you enjoy going to or playing in the most?
I think the ones I usually like the ones where they boo the loudest at the visitors. That gets you going. But the fans. New York and Boston were then and are now the crudest, and Chicago, Well, of course, but then I remember the Chicago games, but the people that would have the box seats, they used to be pretty close to the ice. You know, it was like a night out. People, guys would be in suits and the women would be dressed up, and it's changed a lot, but it was, and as far as the buildings, those are the ones that I think I really liked. Yeah.
A lot of character in them.
Yes.
So, over the years, you've taken multiple road trips. Can you tell us about any funny road trip stories or characters you ran into over the years?
Road trips were, oh God, see, I should have gone and read all the questions. I would have been ready for that one. Well, different things on road trips. When I went to Detroit, I was probably about 28 years old. Never smoked in my life. And after you get off the airplane, get on the bus to go on a road, say we're in Boston or New York, almost all the guys would light up a cigar. And I'd be in it, and I don't know who I was sitting next to, and I said, boy, I can't take this. He said, Carl, if you just light one up, you don't have to inhale, just light it up and it won't bother you. So I did. I never inhaled, but on those trips, and then I continued years after, I would light up a cigar. But other than that, other road trips, I know Montreal, everybody loved to go to Montreal. It's just a great city. I think I can't tell that one.
Sure you can, Carl. Sure you can. Enlighten us.
So back in 64, you get my years mixed up here. It was with Montreal, and that would have been 65, 66, and Gump Worsley was injured. So that was the first year that they dressed two goaltenders. And then, so I went up, and Charlie Hodge was the backup at the start of the year, throughout the year, really. And so I went up, and Toe Blake was the coach. And this was the first time that he had two goalies in the locker room. So first time he had to make a decision, say, who am I going to play? So he said, well, if you win or tie, you keep playing. If you lose, the next guy, figures that's pretty good. Well, pretty successful the years that they won there, how many Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I went up, I think I was up for 12 games, and Charlie never got it. They never lost a game. They either won or tied every game.
Wow.
So then Gump joins the team. We're in Toronto, and it's a Tuesday practice. Back then, when there was 6 teams, Wednesday, Thursday were always hockey night in Canada, kind of. You were either in Montreal or Toronto. There was always So we'd practice, and before practice, Gump walks in, and you have to appreciate Gump. He didn't really have the body of an athlete, but wow, what a goaltender! Oh my God, he was amazing. But anyway, he comes in and go out to practice, and he didn't like it if guys would hit him with the puck. So yeah, he'd kind of stand to the side. You think that's BS, but ask Tom Reed about that.
Okay, all right.
But anyway, we had practice, and if they shot 200 bucks at him, he might have stopped 50 or 75. I mean, he's just kind of in there. So I figured, well, I'll be up here for a while now. And after practice, Toe Blake comes up and says, well, Carl, we're sending you back to Houston. Gump says he's ready.
That was it.
Yeah.
Man.
So after practice, we go, and I have to leave the next morning, I think, at 7. So I go out with Gump and we have a couple of drinks. So I said, I got to get going. He said, oh, no, come on. I got to stick around for a while. But he stayed there for a while. And how he did, just amazing. And the next night, Charlie Hodge he wore one of those masks that just kind of covered the front of the face. And he caught a shot in the side of his head. And Gump went in, and luck of the draw, I was gone. So, and he played. I think he played pretty much most of the games the rest of the year. And of course, they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a story about that too later if you want.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go with it. Yeah, go with it.
So I go back to Houston, get back to Detroit. I have family there, and I'm spending the summer there. And my wife and I were just moving into an apartment, and our season ended earlier. It's the Red Wings are playing Montreal in what turned out to be the last game of the finals. The Montreal is winning 3-2 in the finals.
Okay.
And in Detroit. So I get a call, and it's the assistant to the general manager of Montreal. Says, Carl, Sam Pollock wants to know if you're going to the game tomorrow. I said I hadn't planned on it. We just got in town and just moving. He said, well, Sam wants you to go to the game and be the backup in case Gump would get hurt. Then you'd back up Charlie. And I said, well, I haven't been on skates for a month. He said, that's okay. Sam doesn't want to bring whoever it is and pay his airfare and meal money and room. And you're right there. I said, well, that's fine, but I haven't been on skates for a month. He says, that's okay. That's okay.
Wow. But you're the closest one. You don't have to have any expenses.
He was in town.
Oh,
nice.
Oh, it gets better.
Okay.
So I get to hang up, and he said, oh, Carl. And Sam says, get it to the rink as early as you can, park as close to the rink, and leave your equipment in the car. So if Gump got hurt, I would have to leave the building, go get my equipment.
Oh my gosh! You couldn't even bring it in the rink.
Stanley Cup Finals.
Holy geez. Things are a little bit different now.
I tell you. So I actually had that question. As rumor has it, at times you were forced to dress in your car due to limited locker room space. Is that true?
No. I think there's
Just
there's
that one time?
Well, that would have I would have brought my equipment into the room.
Sure.
But there's there were a couple of coaches in the minor leagues that if you'd be, I'm not going to mention any names, but you'd be on the. Sometimes we used to take a station wagons to the or the bus, but it'd get running late, and it'd have the guys getting dressed on the bus. It's only one guy that I know for sure, another one there, and so you get to the rink and be ready to go. Didn't happen very often, I don't think.
Yeah, not ideal, definitely.
Your career was kind of set aside or interrupted at one point. You ended up, I believe it was 1962, either drafted or joined the U.S. Army. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got drafted in the fall of '62. Yeah.
So how did that affect your career? What happened? Did you end up going to basic training and
Yep.
you were taken away from the game for a while?
Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah, with basic training, then military police training out in Georgia, and then ended up in California for the next 20 months. So, actually, I used to get up once in a while and practice with the San Francisco SEALs. That was about, I think it was less than 200 miles from camp, so I'd go up on a weekend or something like that. Didn't get much ice time, though. No.
But you kept the dream alive, though.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
So then you made your NHL debut, if we're right with this research, with the Red Wings in 1964.
Right.
So take us through that experience. Hometown boy, you're with the Red Wings.
Can we pass by that?
Sure. Yeah. It's your interview, man.
But no. So when I got out, I hadn't been on ice much in training camp, and for whatever reason, I had a great training camp, and I guess I wanted to play. And so that's now this is the first year that they carried an extra goalie, but they didn't dress them. They're making big strides now. The next year you had to dress two. That was when I was in Montreal. So I had a great camp. I worked hard before I got there. And then as the season went on, Roger Crozier was, he ended up being the Rookie of the Year, great goaltender. And I wasn't getting any action. And then we had old players like Gordie Howe, Alex Delvecchio, Gadsby. I don't know about a couple of other guys I can't think. But City Able you just give guys, those guys a day off, and then optional. We had a lot of optional practice. And I was not getting any ice time. And the equipment people at that time, they didn't want you to, they had to clean the room. And if most of the guys were getting a day off, they didn't, to be quite honest, they didn't want anybody to be, to be in there. So they made it rough on you if you wanted to practice. So I didn't really get to practice much. First, well, I don't want to go into the next one. Let's move on.
Okay.
Well, I realize that your stop there apparently was not the best stop you had, but you had the opportunity to meet Gordie Howe. What kind of individual was he?
Oh, a great guy. Great. But, I used to practice with him when I was in high school and so many training camps that I was at. So, hockey guys are great guys, hockey people, and when you mentioned that brought me back to another story.
Go for it.
Good story. So we're in during the middle of the season, and we went to Chicago, game in Chicago. Meanwhile, after the game, there was a couple of feet of snow or whatever it was that fell. And when you get that in Detroit, it's rough going.
Oh, sure.
And maybe it wasn't 2 feet, but it seemed like it. Okay. But anyway, we got to the train station, and there was no buses running, no cars. There were a few cabs that were out there. So most of the guys, there's about 6 of us that were still at the train station. And we got a cab and went back to the Olympia. And now we're at the Olympia, and what are we going to, that's as far as the guy would take us. So we're standing there, and, now how are we going to get it was Alex Delvecchio, Parker McDonald, Norm Ullman, Paul Henderson, Pitt Martin, myself. And me and my big mouth, I said, John Mitchell, who was the assistant general manager, and Glenn Sonmore's father-in-law, by the way. I said, Glenn always leaves his car when he goes on a road trip. I don't know, but he always leaves his car parked here. So lo and behold, Johnny had left his car inside the arena. So away we go. Delvecchio's driving, and I think Parker's they got the 2 front seats, and then there were about 6 of us piling, which was good because it give us good traction.
Wait in the back, yep.
So away we go. They drop everybody off, and I'm the last one. I used to carpool with Delvecchio. We lived fairly close to each other, so away Parker and Delvecchio go. And he said, we had a game, I think, the next afternoon game, I think. And Alex says, I'll bring the car back, and then my wife will come, and I'll have a ride home. So I didn't think anything more of it. We played the game the next day, and then we parked. The players, they had parking for the players, but it was, say, if there was 20 cars going to be there, that was parking for. You had to leave your keys in the car because the guys. I don't know. You'd back them in yourself, but I think if it wasn't enough, they would get them closer together. So we played the game the next day. go back to practice on Monday, I think it was. And Johnny Mitchell comes in the room. What the hell's going on? Where's my car? I came here to get my car, and my car's not here. Where is it? And now Del Vecchio's the captain of the team. I've been there less than half a season. He said, somebody said, oh, the guys took it or something. What do you mean the guys took it? And Del Vecchio's coming out of the shower. Still see him. He says, well, it was Wetzel's idea.
He threw you under the bus.
Oh, put me on the bus to Pittsburgh. That was our farm team. Oh yeah, I was gone the next day.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So when you were with the Red Wings, you were one of only 2 Americans in the NHL at the time.
Right.
So and the other one being the great Boston Bruin and Duluth, Minnesota, Tommy Williams.
Yeah.
So did you feel any resentment from the Canadian players?
Never.
Being an American?
Never.
Good.
Not even after when I played that game. It didn't even until later on in life. I thought, yeah, I bet there were some guys not happy that it wasn't. But never heard anything. Yeah, I never had a problem.
Nice.
You played in an era where helmets and masks were not always worn. Did you play originally without a mask?
Probably the last 4 years of my career, I wore a mask. And early on there, if you wanted to play, there was only 6 teams and only 1 goalie on a team, and they didn't wear masks. So if you wanted to play in the NHL, you didn't wear a mask. And if you were playing in the minor leagues as a forward or defenseman, you're I don't want to say, to not wear a helmet, because the scouts and the manager would think that you're chicken. So they're very dinosaurs. They thought that if you're, it's going to bother your vision if you're wearing a mask. But they didn't have to get down there, right?
Yeah, they weren't standing in front of them.
No kidding.
So did you take any shots to the face or head?
As you look at my face.
I'm wondering how good you were looking before that.
No, I had a pretty good glove hand. I could get that glove up, and I think I got, I don't know, the first year I played junior up in Canada. American going up to Canada, didn't read anything about junior hockey, and we're playing in St. Catharines, Ontario, and there's a guy by the name of Bobby Howe playing there. And it was one of these dark rinks where the ice is a little dark, and the boards hadn't been painted for on the light. And I remember the guy coming across, and I think he was out past the blue line, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden I just hear a ping, and it hits the crossbar and goes up. And the referee, when he goes, I said, "What was that?"
You never saw it coming.
What was that? He says, "That was Bobby Hill." Who's that? So if it would have hit me in the head, I would have been dead. He could. And they always say, "Well, you play when there's a straight sticks." They couldn't let me know. You could shoot the puck.
Yeah, you could still bring the puck.
Was he the one you probably feared the most as a goaltender?
Yeah. If you had fear, it was all over. You couldn't fear. And our equipment was so crappy, you're concerned more about taking one in the arm or, it was just terrible equipment. Even the gloves were bad,
So compare that equipment to what you see the goalies wearing now.
Oh, my goodness. When Herbie coached the NorthStars for 1 year, I went and helped a little bit with the goaltenders. And before training camp, I went over to, I think, Eden Prairie, and the guys were working out. And John Casey was there, and he's putting his equipment on. And I see this body armor that he's putting on his shoulders and chest.
What's that?
I said, wow. I said, John, that is amazing. That is, I'm thinking all the just awful, some of the bruises you had and elbows. And he says, yeah. I said, it is good. He said, but sometimes I'll take a shot right up in the chest here, and I can't feel it, and then I don't know where it is on the ice. So it's really tough to find it. I said, oh, really?
Try taking that shot when you can't catch
it's
your
a whole
breath.
different kind of problem, isn't it?
It is.
All right, we're going to give a shout out to our other sponsors. The Chippewa Steel is a proud sponsor of the Breakout Sessions podcast. If you're looking for a great night of hockey, a Steel game is the place to be. You can find their schedule online at ChippewaSteelHockey.com or by following their social media pages at Chippewa Steel Hockey. Riverside Bike and Skate is Eau Claire's hockey headquarters, which is the oldest hockey store in the state of Wisconsin. Buy hockey gear from the people that play and know the game. And don't forget about their bicycle sales and service, as well as your paddle sports center for kayaks and canoes. And Raleigh's Coach Club in Altoona, Wisconsin is located across the street from the Altoona Ice Center on Spooner Avenue, and it's been a staple in the Altoona community for decades, providing support and sponsorship for youth and adult sports. Raleigh's has your favorite beverage ready and your favorite team on the screen.
We were talking about your pads, and let's talk about your leg pads. Back in the day that you played, they were leather, and weren't they stuffed with horsehair?
Deer hair, or whatever, that's what they say they were, yeah.
And how heavy did those things get as the game progressed?
Well, it's not just as the game progressed, but added on over the season if they didn't get the chance to dry out and that. So I don't know how heavy, but they were heavy. But one of those things, it's what you had. It's what you had to deal with. You don't even.
Did you just have one set of pads? You didn't have a couple sets that you could rotate? One set.
You're very lucky that if they would give you a new pair every year, no matter how, to be honest, they were really, can I say it, cheap?
You said it.
That's the way it was then.
My knees used to get beat up, because the pads would start to lose their shape. Try to get new ones, boy, it was tough. Yeah.
Our good friend Tom Reed here has got a set of your goalie pads up on the wall here that you've autographed. And he wanted to know if you ever stopped a shot because there's not a mark on those pads.
Is he here today?
He was. I don't know. He probably left
He
now.
probably left when he saw you walk in the door.
Takes a cheap shot and then leaves, yeah.
So we're guessing that maybe you polished them up before you put them up on the wall.
Yeah, that's what happened.
That's what it was. Okay. There you go. All right.
I want to go back for just a second to Gordie Howe. Were his elbows as notorious as everybody says?
Well, I'm sure everybody will be able to tell you a story, but when I went down to Pittsburgh, when Del Vecchio threw me under the bus, a fellow playing down there by the name of Jerry Tapazzini, and he played with Boston a number of years, and I can't remember if he was one of his trips down into the minors, and was going to be up again, I don't recall, but I was rooming with him, and he had an awful scar on his, I don't know how long it was. It was a pretty nasty scar. And we're probably talking about Gordie, and he said his first game that he played against Gordie, kid, and he said Gordie's in the corner, face up against the glass, and he says, I'm going to get the big guy. So, Jerry's a pretty good sized guy. He went in and checked him from behind. And so he's skating away. So I'm kind of congratulating myself. He says, back then, excuse me.
Yep, go right ahead.
Back then, there was only one referee. So he had after they were down, they got up, and then the play's going to the other end, so the referee's following the play. and can't do it with a microphone here, but the players would, I guess I will, where they just kind of skate.
Oh, yeah. Like the shuffling.
Yeah. So Gordie would give it an extra little thing, and he came up and he just slit him open.
Slit him open with the stick.
Yeah. And he said, I never got within a stick length of him again.
Oh.
Yeah. So when you say, does he have, I think Gordie would give it to somebody not quite that, and I'm sure he didn't mean to get him that bad. I think he was trying to send a message. And
Message received.
Yeah, but I mean,
not only him, but a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's talk about we're going to jump ahead for just a second. Let's talk about what you're doing now. Tell us about the NHL alumni room that you're with.
Okay. I started with the new, with the Wild. They set up an alumni lounge. Very nice room. Anybody that's played in the NHL is a member of our alumni. And then for a small fee, annual membership fee, they can get in the room. We have complimentary beverages, some alcoholic, and some snacks. And then it's open half hour before the games, an hour after, or hour before and half hour after. And we could just, a lot of the guys come in, they bring their kids, their wife, and it's really a nice room. It's not a suite where you can see the game, but we have 2 TVs in the room, and we get a lot of the guys.
What do they have to do to get their picture up there? We noticed that there are quite a few pictures hung up there.
If they usually, well, I saw, send in a photo, and they'll have, and it's usually I have to tell the wife or the fiance because the guys don't get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we were up there visiting with you a time or two, you mentioned that you enjoyed watching Russian player, and I don't know, I'm going to probably...
Anatoly Fersov.
Thank you, Moog.
Absolutely.
Moog is my guy. You enjoyed watching him. What made him so unique that you enjoyed watching him?
I don't know if I enjoyed watching him, but I think he was one of the best players. He's right up there with Gordie and Beliveau and Bobby Hull. He was just a tremendous athlete, and he was on those teams that I'd have to look back in the books, but I think maybe 5, 6, 7 years he was on that all-star right winger. But he's just a guy. You don't like watching him because he's going to be driving that puck at you pretty quick. But we're good memory. When we were playing in Vienna in '67, we were outmanned. Our teams, we just didn't have the training time. Well, we used to practice twice a week, but we hung in there fairly good. But anyway, in this game, they were probably beating us third period. We're losing by 4 or 5, and the puck comes down his would be Fersov's left wing, and somebody dumped it in, and I see him skating for it. And why I thought I could beat one of the fastest skaters. So I went charging across towards the boards, but it turns out I was not fairly close. But he happened to look up and he saw me, and as I was lunging at him, and he just threw the puck towards the net. And he didn't score. So,
thank goodness.
Message sent.
There you go. Don't mess in your area.
Go ahead, Mo.
Well, so you were able to wear the red, white, and blue with the U.S. national team. How cool was that to be able to represent your country?
That was, especially if, when you hear that national anthem after you win. And that's I think anybody that would take part in that would be, in awe. I guess, I don't know if that's the word, but
wow.
Yeah, especially the first time. Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah, that's got to be cool. Yeah. Good for you.
And then you also had the opportunity to win the Calder Cup with the Rochester Americans. That had to be a heck of an experience.
That was a fun year. That was an interesting year, to say the least.
Okay. Enlighten us.
That was the first year of the North Stars. And Ren Blair was general manager and coach. And he traded 5 of our players, and then he loaned me for the rest of the year, right around Christmas time, to get J.P. Parisi and Milan Marcetta. And so we went to Rochester, and they were in last place. And by the end of the year, we ended up in first place. We had with the 5 guys that they sent, it really made a difference.
I'll say.
Yeah.
So, and they had a great goaltender by the name of Bobby Perot. He didn't even wear elbow pads. It's amazing.
No elbow pads?
He was just but he just had the great glove hands, and he especially at home, he was just about unbeatable. But there were 2 places that he didn't play very good. We're in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and in Quebec City. So we comes the first round of the playoffs. We're playing Hershey. And so we win the first 2 games at home. Now we're going to Hershey. And our coach, Joe Crozier, plays me. And we win in overtime, I think 2-1. But unfortunately, the next game I reverted to form. I think we lost. Well, we were losing about 4-1, and the second period wasn't even over. So he put Bobby back in to finish the game. And then we went. So now we're up 3-1, and we go back and we won the 3rd game at home. And then, I'm sorry. That was 3, then we went at home and we won the 4th game. But now we're playing Quebec, and again, he doesn't play good there. For whatever reason, he's French-Canadian, he speaks the language, but we went to practice. The fans were on his bed. For practice, there were about 2,000 people in the stands. There was a recession. They had the concession stands open.
Wow.
And I remember Bobby's up there, he's waving his stick at the fans. So Don Cherry is our captain. And,
Don Cherry.
And he says, well, there's no, and our coach, Joe Crozier, he wouldn't announce the starting lineup until you're ready to go on the ice. Not for warm-ups, but to go on the ice for the national anthem. He'd come in and tell you. So for the games that in Rochester, pretty well knew that Bobby was going to play, so he'd take most of the warm-ups or whatever he wanted. And then in Hershey, I took the warm-ups. So now we're going in Quebec. We're up 2-0. And Wetzel, you're going to be playing for sure, So we didn't know that Joe Crozier figured that he played a hunch. I don't know what the hunch was, So anyway, I take all the warm-ups, and he comes into the dressing room, and he just walks in, opens the door, and said, Perot, Cherry. That was the first, when you hear him come in, he gives the goaltender first. Really?
Wow.
So we go out, and true to form, it was, we were losing about 3-0 at the end of the. Anyway, I had to start going before the first period ended. Okay, so we lost that game. And now we know that I'm going to play the next game. Definitely, it's, after that.
Sure.
And so after the game, but Joe Crozier used to always, on a bus or plane, he always had 2 beers for each guy. And if he knew if some guys don't drink beer, then then there was two less.
Okay.
So, and always, if I didn't play the game, I didn't have one. So he knew that. And the guy said, why'd you tell him that? So we get to, and the thing, he took us and put us up in the finest We're up in the Laurentian Mountains. Just a beautiful place we're staying, just really first class. And after the game, it's got drinks set up in a room for us. And what does he have in there? He's got a guy handing the beers out, but there's just enough for 2 for each guy. So a couple of guys started complaining about it, and then Crozier goes, "Come on, get out of here, get to bed." You know? So I'm not drinking. I go to bed. Little did I know that Bobby Perot was having a party in his room.
Uh-oh.
And they had a few cases of beer on the floor, and make a little racket, and the management had to come and tell him to knock it off. And so I don't know any of this, but Joe Crozier does. So the next morning, I'm going for breakfast, and Crozier says, "Wetzel, you have a good sleep last night?" I said, "Oh, yes, I did." I'd better. He says, "Well, when you finish eating, get up there and get your bags. We're moving out of his place."
Oh, wow.
And of course, he took us into just it wasn't, well, it was pretty bad. So now we don't play, and I don't know if if we had a day off or 2 off, but anyway, we didn't see him. He didn't show up for practice, anything. Didn't see him. The only thing, one of our guys was standing out in front of the motel, and Joe went by in a cab, and he rolled down the window. Says, "What are you doing? Waiting for the beer truck to come by?" So we don't. Now everybody know I am playing for sure because they caught Bobby Perot in his room with all this beer. Well, little did we know. Excuse me. We getting ready to go on the ice, and there Crozier opens the door. We don't know that he thinks that Bobby is going to think that he owes Joe something. So he's really going to, how coaches think something.
Sure, yeah.
So everybody's ready. I'm ready. And he opens the door and says, "Perot!"
Oh, no way.
So we go out, and I don't know what the score of the game is, but there was a fight. And they had the strange, where all the benches in the penalty box, like in the rinks before, you'd have the fans sitting right up against you. You know, no partition between. Yeah, and I'm sitting at the far end of the bench. For some reason, I took my stick over with me, but anyway, there was a fight, and they got in the penalty box, and then they started fighting in there, and I'm standing up and watching what's going on, and I see something flash by, and somebody took my stick, and they go, "No," so there's nothing, there's where I was sitting, and then there's a brick stairway, and then, it's the aisle and another seat, and then it's just like the old Met. You go halfway up the building, and then there's a walkway around, and then you go up to. So there I go with my skates, charging up the steps after.
That sounds like a Slapshot episode.
Sparks were flying.
They were.
So I got up to the top there, and I don't know where the hell the guy was. And then somebody tried to take a kick, that'd be elevated behind you. Somebody did. I saw a boot come fly, by my face. He missed me. And I thought, what in the, Carl, what are you doing up here? And I looked down, here comes a guy by the name of Jim McKinney. I should have brought I got pictures of him. He's coming up the steps with a stick in front of him, and he's
Hitting people as he's going up?
Yeah. He gets up to me, he says, "Come on, Wetz, follow me." And we went back down, and the funny part was he and I both got fined $2,000 from the league. And we were only making like 20, so
That's a big hit.
Yeah, that's 10% of your salary.
Oh, that's a big hit.
So I'll shorten this up a bit. But anyway, so now we're tied 2-2.
Okay.
Go back into Rochester and we win. And lo and behold, Game 7 in Quebec, Joe walked into the room and he said, Wetzel, Cherry. So I
Finally got the nod.
Yeah, and I played very well. We won the Calder Cup. Yeah. That's a long story just for that, isn't
No.
it?
That's good, though. I love that going up into the stands story. That was great.
You know, you guys had different modes of transportation back in your day. You mentioned a plane, you mentioned a bus, you mentioned a train. Did it depend upon the location that you were going to that determined what type of transportation you were taking?
Well, in the minor leagues, it depended on, what team you're with. Remember the International League back then, it's not like now. International League, I think, is one of their major farm teams, I think. But anyway, back then it was a little bit lower down. A couple of us teams had 2 station wagons because you only had about 12 players in the team,
Yeah, we were wondering about that, too, how many players you carried. Yeah.
But in the NHL, Montreal, back then, they took a train everywhere. Detroit used to fly to Boston and New York. You go by train to Chicago and Toronto. And then if they're going on to Montreal, they'd take train. But if they're flying directly to Montreal, then there'd be 3 areas that we flew.
Oh, okay.
So, Carl, you played 363 professional games over 10 seasons. So, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently if you had a chance?
I wouldn't have let you send all those stats.
Okay. Sorry, man. They're out there.
Is there anything that
you would do differently?
Oh, something. And I think anybody that I played with, we did not exactly get reimbursed and especially the guys that were in the minor leagues, but even in the NHL, the same as in Major League Baseball, the NFL, even your top players, worked in the off season. Killebrew and Mickey Mantle and guys that the owners, and we loved to play, and we didn't have agents, but I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
And even although when I took that $35 and I lost my amateur standing, over the years that I really, really bugged me, more than bugged me, just got me down sometimes if things were not going so good. And things been better? How much better would things have been for me? And about 5-6 years ago, I was speaking at Mancini's for the Old Time Hockey Association. So I was telling a lot of these stories that we're talking about now. And I told the one about the not getting the scholarship to the University of Michigan. That was kind of towards the end of my speech. And it happened, my wife and daughter were sitting at that event. And I looked over and I said, all the times that I've regretted that I took that $35. So I look down and see my wife and daughter. And if I wouldn't have taken that, I wouldn't be here today. All you guys here that know and don't know, all the memories I've had, I wouldn't change a thing.
What a trip, man.
What a trip.
That's amazing.
I don't know that we really touched on your stop much with the North Stars or the Fighting Saints. Can you just touch, give us a synopsis of what it was like playing for the North Stars for a little while and then the Fighting Saints as well?
Well, the North Stars, I came on. I signed a 2-year contract. As Mogi has looked at my stats there.
He is our researcher, that's for sure.
I'm sorry, I gotta have a job to do.
Yeah, so I think I played 5 games with the Stars, 5 or 6 maybe. Ended up playing in their farm team in Memphis, for 2 years. Great, just any memory of, you think back of any team, there's just good memories. I don't care where you were, just the guys and the families, and you're just like family, hopefully.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah.
Was Reed on the team at that time?
No, Tom came, I think, the 3rd year of the North Stars.
Okay.
I guess the stories got better then, or he tells them better.
He's a good storyteller.
That's what it is.
He's a good storyteller. So you and your family settled here in the Twin Cities area. You're a native Michiganer.
Right.
What we know hockey led you here. What kept you here?
Well, that's a good question. We came originally when I was with Montreal. And I thought, that was the first year that they carried a second goalie, and still only 6 teams in. And I just thought it's time to maybe think about something else. So I came to play with the U.S. team and go to school at St. Thomas. It was St. Thomas College at that time.
Yep.
College of St. Thomas. But anyway, that's why I did come here. And sometimes, bounced around a lot, and I thought Minnesota's a great area. It was got our kids, and all of a sudden they're just about ready to go to school, and so we both liked it here, and we just decided to stay. That's simple.
Yeah, nice.
I got one last question for you, and that is, other than Gordie Howe and maybe Bobby Hull, who is the most prominent player that you feel was on the ice during your tenure in the NHL?
It was John Beliveau.
Oh,
Yeah,
phenomenal Canadian.
Yeah, he was a presence. Yeah, there were a lot of very, very good players. But I guess you have to put Bobby Hull and I actually did play one game against Bobby Orr with the North Stars, but then he had another one of those knee injuries that he had. I don't even know how many games he played, but it seems like he just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Another great guy.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
He had to be fun to watch when he had the puck.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Carl, this has been a heck of
fun.
a trip down memory lane, and wow, what a story. As a kid, youth with no gear, playing outdoor rinks to ending up in the NHL, that is, you can't beat that story.
Well, and then there's one other thing that I mentioned about the visualization and hand-eye coordination but the one other thing that I did, I remember reading a book. I don't know who had written it, but back when I don't even think I was in high school yet. They said to practice your okay. My vision.
Practice the back and forth.
Yeah. I used to sit in the city buses and just with my straight ahead, and I used to look. They had the ads up above the windows.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do, but then I would look and all the way to the front and over. And I did every time I was on a city bus.
Keep your head straight and
So
looking
you're-
left and
Now, for you guys that couldn't figure it out, it's peripheral vision.
That's what I was going to say.
Boy,
Peripheral vision.
I
All right,
gave you
we'll get there.
I gave
us
you
a
as
lot of
many hints as I could.
You truly did. We didn't pick up on it, JC. Well, that's why we're on this side of the mic and he's on that side of the mic.
Okay, now for the first time in our history of doing this podcast, a goalie one-upped us.
There you go.
That's true. Good thing this is the end of the interview.
Carl, thank you for your time. You've been a terrific guest. We couldn't ask for any better.
Okay. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carl.
Welcome to our Meet the Steel segment. NAHL Chippewa Steel player Shake and Bake, Devin Shakar is with us today, Moog.
Oh, this is great. They just got off the rink. We had a couple of his other teammates up here, too, and he was chirping a lot. So I can't wait to hear what he has to say today. Thanks for joining us today, Devin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know what? We're going to start out with, we just learned that you are a commit to Brown University. How does that feel?
Feels good. It's been a dream of mine for many years, and I grew up right down the road from Union College in Schenectady, New York. So I got to watch all those teams growing up in the ECAC, and then I went to school in Lake Placid last year, and they have their conference finals and semifinals up in Lake Placid at the Herb Brooks Arena, the Olympic Center up there. So, I mean, all my life it's just been ECAC hockey, and luckily I got the opportunity to stay in the conference, and hopefully in a couple of years I'll bring back an ECA championship.
There you go. Good luck.
Sweet, yeah.
That's awesome.
So tell us how you ended up as a goaltender.
Actually, that's funny because I had an interview this morning and for the NAHL, and they asked me the same question. My response is there's a lot of stories, so I kind of bounce around between them.
Figure out which one's best.
Usually... my mom says, I start off with saying that I wasn't a very good player, so I just figured that if I wanted to be on the best team, I might as well stick with what I'm good at, and I was goalie. And my mom said that no matter whether I was a player or a goalie, somehow I'd find my way into the net. So usually I like to stick with goalie's the only position where you can really have a grip on the game, no matter how well the team's doing in front of you. I always believe that no matter, like I said, how well the team, how good or bad the team is in front of me, that I can find a way to win a hockey game.
Wow. We all know, or most of us know, that goalies have their little quirks.
Yeah.
Fleury is the one that talks to the post after,
Right.
a good ringer, right? So, same socks, same underwear. What do you do to keep, superstitions going?
I don't really think I have too many superstitions. I think it's a big routine. I'm a big routine guy, especially games. I like getting here 3 hours early, and I like doing my visualization, my meditation, my breathing, and it kind of feels weird. I usually put my left leg through my pants when I get going, but like that, I don't really think about that stuff too much. The only thing that I really do is for the games, I have my teacher's initials written on my stick. He passed away 3 years ago when I was in his class, and he was a big part of my life. And I have his initials, MT, Matthew Turner, and I just kind of think about everything that he said. He was a funny, quirky guy. He'd always say "chow," swimmingly. He would say things like that, and I just kind of think about him, think about everything that's got me here, and just kind of take a deep breath and kind of enjoy the moment, right? Like not too many players can say that they're playing at the level that I'm playing at, and just kind of try to enjoy the moment.
So tell us a little bit about growing up out there in New York and your youth hockey.
Right. So I actually got into hockey watching the Albany River Rats. They were an AHL team for the Devils a long time ago, and they became the Albany Devils. And unfortunately, they're not there anymore. I think they're in Binghamton or wherever they moved. But
you're right. Yeah.
I grew up watching them, and I wanted to stick with it ever since. And like I said, I grew up right down the road from Union College, and then not too far from RPI. I grew up a Union fan, so RPI stinks. But
won't you be playing them next year?
I will be. So I better watch out. But it'll be fun. I grew up playing. I actually won a state championship back. When was it? 2018, I think 2018, double A state championship Pee Wee. So it wasn't a big deal, but I had another player on that team, Jack McCarr. He's playing in Lincoln right now. He's actually playing at the World Junior A Challenge right now for Team USA. But he's committed to Northeastern, so it's kind of fun joking, following him along, right? He went to South Kent and I went to Northwood. We were in the same conference last year for prep school, but I was kind of a step behind him, so I never got to play against him, but hopefully when we're in college, I'll get to play him.
You had mentioned before we turned on the mics your favorite game that you played in. Tell our listeners a little bit about that game.
Luckily we had the opportunity to get a bye in the PHC conference playoffs last year. We were all at SAC, St. Andrews College, which is near Toronto. They have a unbelievable facilities and unbelievable campus, but we ended up playing St. Andrews after they beat South Kent in overtime the day before. So we played them on a Friday night, and they packed this thing. They packed the arena, hundreds, maybe thousands of fans. They lined up along the glass, scouts everywhere. We've played them a handful of times before during the year, so we knew that they were very good. They had 16 to 18 commits. They had a first round draft pick on their team last year, but somehow we found a way to win in double overtime. So it was pretty fun. It was a taxing game, and I remember there was a lot of emotions going on. We were up 2-0 with the last minute, and I gave up 2 goals and threw a screen and then kind of just like a bouncing puck behind the net, and we ended up going to overtime, and then made a couple big saves in overtime. They whiffed on a puck backdoor. They were wide open. They whiffed on it, and then second overtime came. Incredibly tired, but luckily I can remember the play. It went from, I can't remember, it was Ritter Coombs to Michael Peluso to Shane Ternosky, but it was a one touch right to the middle. Shane Tron, called him Shane Tron. He lived right next to me in the dorms, and he buried one back far, and I just remember just throwing everything, sprinting up the ice. I was jumping. I was probably more tired celebrating than I was during the game, but I was trying to do everything I could to keep us in that game, and luckily Shane buried it.
Tell us about that conference you played in. You mentioned a couple of the teams. Tell us, all the rest of the teams that are in that league, and how do you end up there?
Right. So in that conference, I'm not sure if Mount St. Charles is still in it. I think they changed, or they might change to Bishop Kearney, but it was in the East Division last year. It was Northwood, which is in Lake Placid, South Kent, which is a prep school in Connecticut, and Mount St. Charles in Rhode Island. And then on the west side, it was Culver, Shattuck, St. Mary's, and then St. Andrews College. So 5 or 6 pretty prestigious prep schools at the top of 18U hockey. And, you play teams a handful of times during the year at home and away. And, the competition is stiff, that you got to give it everything you got every minute that you're on the ice, because there's unbelievable talent coming out of that league. And like I said, there's a first round draft pick, and Shattuck's a pretty well known school, and they had Macklin Celebrini come out of there a couple of years ago, and Sidney Crosby, right? They have a good history. So when you're playing against those teams, and there's scouts in the stands, there's a lot at stake when you play, and it's pretty exciting when you get the chance to beat St. Andrews at St. Andrews, or you beat Mount, or you beat South Kent. Every game matters.
Right.
Tell us how you ended up in Chippewa Falls.
So last year I was at I was in Northwood, and I ended up signing a tender with them halfway through February or so.
Okay. And your journey ends up here, starting goaltender, getting regular rotations. How you liking the team around you?
Good. Unfortunately, we've lost a handful in the past, but I think we're going in the right direction. We've been close in many of those games. It's not like every game we're in is a blowout. Hopefully we'll start scoring a little bit more, and hopefully I can make a couple more big saves to win some games, but we're back at home for the rest of the month, so, we should be a team to watch out for.
So shake and bake, was there any goalies out there that you patterned your style after?
Unfortunately, the ones I look after, they're a lot bigger than me, so they're able to play a lot differently. I love watching Jeremy Swayman. I think he's an unreal goaltender, but he's unfortunately 6'4" or something like that. I'm not 6'4", unfortunately. Carey Price, Ryan Miller was a big one growing up. He played for the Buffalo Sabres. I'm a Sabres fan. So it's kind of bounced between those. But I like to kind of pick different styles, see what different goalies do, especially at the level I'm at right now. I was never really gifted with anything. I wasn't ever really the top of the charts when I started playing hockey. I kind of just had to work at it and kind of change things. And my goalie coach has been a big part of that. I've been working with him since I was 7 years old. So
Nice.
He knows a lot about me. He knows what works. And I think a lot of it's a mental game, especially when you get to this level. There's a lot of good goalies in the world. I think that's something that I definitely can improve on is my mental side of the game. But I like watching Jeremy Swayman. I like Joey Decore and how well he plays the puck. He's an unbelievable goalie at that. And Jeremy Swayman, really big, keeps it simple. And, there's other goalies out there. I like how athletic Stuart Skinner is. But, I try to pick and choose some things that I see that work out at the collegiate and the pro level and kind of, see if it works for me.
Are you done growing?
Unfortunately, I think I am. I joke with Connor Murphy. He plays in the AHL for Calgary Flames. He went to Union College, but he's from around my area. He works with my goalie coach, so I see him all summer. And I joke with him and Stefanos Lekis. He went to UVM. He's in Finland right now, but the difference between Connor Murphy and Steph is listed at 6 foot, but he's actually like 5'10", and Connor Murphy's like 6'4". He's like 6'6", and he's listed at 6'4". So I kind of joke around with them that I fit right in the middle between them.
Okay, good.
I like that. I like that.
For you.
I got one other quick question before we get going here, and that is, you mentioned the mental game. But what did the Steel see in you, and what did Brown University see in you? What's your skill set that they wanted you on these teams?
I think both of them have mentioned my calmness, which is very ironic because I don't feel too calm in the net, to be honest. There's definitely times where I get too excited or too worked up, but I try to work on my skating a lot of the days before and after practice. I think that's a big part of the goalie position. My ability to read plays, that was a big thing that it's changed this year. That last year I was able to kind of cheat plays a little bit more. This year it's a little bit tougher because you have a little bit more consistent skill out there. So guys are able to make plays that you can kind of cheat, or they can shoot it and they can beat it, and then you give up one that you don't really want to give up. But definitely my calmness and my ability to read plays, and hopefully my puck handling's up there. I joke with Doc a lot that they should put a scouting report on my playmaking ability, but hopefully I get a couple points this year. But maybe a goalie goal. Dan, our goalie coach, jokes with us. He still wants one of his goalies to score, so maybe if I get the shot this weekend, I'll just send it up the ice, 200. Hope it goes
luck. Good luck. Nothing but net, baby. That's awesome.
You've been very entertaining, if nothing else, young man. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on here.
All right, Devin, thanks. Good luck to you at Brown.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to leave a comment on your favorite social media platform. It helps Mogi and I stay in the game.
And a big thank you to our special guest, Carl Wetzel, as well as our Chippewa Steel player, Devin Shakar, as well as you folks, our faithful listeners. Please remember to do business with our sponsors, the Chippewa Steel, Riverside Bike and Skate, Raleigh's Coach Club, Market and Johnson, Williams Diamond Center, and Kelly Heating and Electric. Please follow us on your favorite social media platforms. And remember, folks, until next time, keep your head on a swivel and stay on your inside edges.